The college football season boils down to this, the national championship. We got ourselves a real barn burner this year. Notre Dame, Ohio State, two-storied programs ready to leave it all on the field. The energy is electric. Fans are already going bonkers down in the parking lot. This game's got history, it's got passion, it's got everything you could want in a championship showdown. We're talking about the legacy of Newt Rockne going up against the powerhouse that Woody Hayes built. This ain't just a game, folks. It's a clash of titans. Buckle up, Buttercup, because this is going to be one heck of a ride.
Let's talk Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish. They've got that defense, that swarming, relentless defense. Bend don't break, baby. But, and this is a big but, their offense can be inconsistent. They'll need to establish the run game early to have a shot. Can't rely on big plays alone against this Ohio State defense.
Now, the Buckeyes. Offensively, explosive. They can score from anywhere on the field. This quarterback, man, he's a gamer. Defense? A bit suspect at times. They can get caught out of position, give up the big play. This game could come down to whether their offense can outscore their defensive liabilities.
Keep your eyes on Notre Dame's linebacker. This kid is a tackling machine. He's the heart and soul of that defense.
On the offensive side, the Irish quarterback. He's got that clutch gene. Can he make enough plays? We'll see.
Now, Ohio State's got weapons, man. Their wide receiver, electric. Can take it to the house on any play.
And their quarterback? This kid is special, man. He's got that it factor. He's the key to the Buckeyes' chances.
So, who you got? This is a tough one to call, folks. Notre Dame's got to control the clock, play tough defense, and limit mistakes. Ohio State, they got to let their playmakers make plays. If their quarterback gets hot, look out. This game is going to be a battle. It's going to be loud, it's going to be intense, it's going to be everything a championship game should be. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. One thing's for sure, the fans in the stands are going to have a huge impact. This one's going to be a classic.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Around the Ballpark podcast. My name is Mike Redmond and I am your host alongside my co-host, my brother, Darren Redmond. How you doing, Darren?
We're doing great. How are you?
Good. Sounds like the dog's doing great as well.
Yes.
And we are going to welcome our very special guest, one of our top listeners to the stream each and every night that we're on. We want to welcome Heather and Marc Laracuente to the podcast tonight. We are so excited to chat with you both tonight and get into a little bit about the national championship game tomorrow night. I'm not sure which channel, but I know it's on tomorrow night. So we'll be competing with Monday Night Raw. So it'll be two good watches for anyone at home. So with that said, Darren, before we get to know our guests and dive in, do you have a word from our sponsor at Nashville Tax Solutions? And you'll see the banner as well at the bottom.
Wow. I see the bottom. I see the banner. I love the banner. I see it above Heather and Mark's head, which is great. And what's the banner we're talking about? We're talking about, hey, attention Pompeii and everybody else. You have tax troubles? Nashville Tax Solutions got you covered. You know, whether you're behind on your returns, you're facing a lien, or you just need what the kids call expert advice. You know, Nashville Tax Solution has got you covered. Listen to what some of the clients say. Chris Bennett and his team saved me from financial nightmares. They're knowledgeable, they're clear, and they're compassionate. This time of year, you take down a Christmas tree, the Christmas lights come down, and then all of a sudden people start to worry about their taxes. Don't worry. You know, Chris Bennett has you covered. Him and his team are very diligent in what they do. They understand that no two people are alike. Tax returns are not templates. It's very individual. They're great listeners. They understand, and they are problem solvers. So don't let taxes stress you out. Reach out to Nashville Tax Solutions today. Call 615-502-2250. That's 615-502-2250. And visit NashvilleTaxSolutions.com or just email info@NashvilleTaxSolutions.com. Nashville Tax Solutions, where tax resolution is achieved.
It's achieved. And thank you so much, Darren. And the folks at Nashville Tax Solutions just got off the phone this afternoon with Chris. He's doing really well. he's excited. Next weekend, he'll be heading off to the Pro Bowl in Orlando. So we'll be able to hear from him then. And a bonus treat in 2 weeks, he will also be attending the big football game in New Orleans, the Super Bowl. So he'll be live from New Orleans. So he'll be live with us for a short here on the channel. So that's super exciting. But what's even more exciting, we have our guests here tonight, Heather and Marc Laracuente. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi.
Hi, thank you.
Hey.
Thanks for having us.
Hello.
And we are here to talk bowling. No, I'm kidding. We are here to talk
Hey, I could do
Ohio
that
State
too.
and Notre Dame tomorrow night. And so before we do that, if we wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about both of you guys and, who you are, where you're from, that sort of thing, and what you do.
Oh, after you, please.
Hi, I'm Heather. I am originally from Ohio, so born and raised Buckeye fan. Go Bucks! We have been here. Mark and I moved down here in 2017. And of course, we first moved down. Everyone wants to know who you're going to root for when you move into a new state. Well, I'm still a Buckeye fan, even though I'm in Florida. So that's me.
And
Well,
Mark, you look like a fellow Ohio State fan over there.
Yeah, that's right. Just the green version. I'm originally from Texas, actually. So I've lived in Tennessee, Northern Indiana, and Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. So several of the teams that were in the tournament this year. But Notre Dame is my number one team. So we've been married for 8 years now. And yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 8 years. And we see some of you guys in the chat. Mike Clark, 2007. This is a big Florida fan. Florida beat Ohio State in the national championship game 41-14. I'm sure they're grateful that you reminded them of that. One cool thing tonight, too, before we get into it, in addition to being live on YouTube and being live on Facebook as well, we thank our Facebook listeners that are watching, but we are now officially live on X as well, starting tonight. So that is super exciting news. So I just wanted to share that. So those of you on X joining us, thank you so very much. And, I want to go ahead and ask my first question, if that's okay. And I wanted to start with you, Mark, in terms of how you became to be a fan. I know you mentioned where you were from and whatnot, but you became to be a fan of Notre Dame. And then Heather, same question with Ohio State.
Sure. So I lived in a place called Elkhart, Indiana, which is right outside of South Bend from the time that I was about 14 until 23. So, all through middle school, high school, those years when I was getting into football and whatnot. And so at that point, you're pretty much two things. You're a Notre Dame fan and a Chicago Bears fan. And that's it.
Oh, you're allowed to be. Yes.
Yeah, that's it. You don't have a choice.
And Heather, same question for you.
So I was, like I said before, I was born and raised there, but I was raised in Orient, Ohio, and that's a small town south of Columbus, so central Ohio. And what else was I supposed to say?
Just how you became to be a Buckeye.
Oh, I was born a Buckeye fan. So I think that was one of my notes. I think that I was told before that the first time I said "Go Bucks," I was 9 months old. So. Wow. For a lot of years, I've been a Buckeye fan. Been to many of the games. My family are all Buckeye. Most of my family are Buckeye fans. My son-in-law is a Michigan fan. We still love you, but we have fun with all of that, with the rivals and all those things. So
that's cool. And I have to ask this, and then Darren, I'm sure you have. I know you have the same notes as me, but if you have some question after that. But I wanted to ask Heather, to you. This question goes to you. So you mentioned you had been to several games there at Ohio State. So one of the things we love to do on this podcast is dive into at least a little bit about each stadium, each ballpark, maybe some kind of tidbit that maybe someone that like myself that hasn't been there before may not know. So if you wouldn't mind just quickly kind of going over what that experience is like coming to an Ohio State game, because I imagine it's always a packed house regardless of their record. Even if you don't know who's playing or who's on the team, I imagine it's always such a great time. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that.
Thank you. The exciting thing is that it's really big, and it's in the shape of a horseshoe. So one end, it is kind of closed off, but the horse is the shape of a horseshoe. So that's cool. A lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people know that. I always thought that was cool, and that they call it the shoe. And then another thing that I loved about, so it's very tall, so you can be at the tip top. I've been at the very top watching the game. I've been in the middle watching the game. No matter where you're at, it's still very exciting. And I've also been on the field because our band performed at a halftime game at of a Purdue Ohio State game back in high school. So I've kind of been in all the areas. But one thing I learned back then that I didn't know, and it was interesting, is that I don't know if it's still like this, but at one point there were actually dorms, college dormitories on one of the levels of the shoe. So I don't remember who lived there, maybe the football team or, somebody but there were actually dorms that were in the shoe. So I thought that was pretty interesting too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's really good. And that's exactly what I was hoping for, because we all know we go to a game, we get the hot dog, we get the soda, we get popcorn, nacho, whatever your go-to stadium food is. But every park, every stadium, minor league level, major league level, pro team, college team has something unique about that. So I would have never known. So thanks for sharing that. But Darren, I believe you have a question.
Well, since we're talking about the shoe, which is one of the most beautiful football stadiums, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's how many 100,000? What is it? What does it hold? I know Michigan holds a lot. Ohio holds.
I think it was 102,000 or so. I think you're right. I think it holds about 100.
And it's funny because I sit here and people, whether it's in Tampa, whether it's in New York, oh, there's 15,000. How am I going to get out of this parking lot? There's 100,000 people. I seriously want to talk about that. How does that work?
So I think that it works because it's a big area. So not only is it a big area of parking, but a lot of the by the time you get out of the place, it's so big and there's so many people, and you have to walk sometimes a pretty good distance or take a shuttle to get to your car. So I think it's just a matter of the amount of people, however many people are getting out first, so it's just kind of like what would you say, not an escalator, but just like a rotation of people getting out. So I don't remember really sitting too long in traffic, and there's pretty good traffic directors and things like that. So that was cool.
It sits like on like the north. It's like just north of downtown in Columbus, which is obviously, it's a big city now. It's larger. More people live there now than Cincinnati and Cleveland combined. So it's a very large city. So yeah, there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot going on, but it takes up such a large area, and the tailgating. So, you can get in from different ways. So wherever there's parking lots all over the place, you can cross over the river, like I think we did for the Penn State game, and so there's lots of different ways in and out, like Heather was saying.
So unpack for me that. Well, you mentioned tailgating. So how does that work? Let's say there's a 1:00 kickoff. Like, what time are you getting in there? Let me set the stage because I had Jet season tickets forever. Yeah. We would get there at 9:00, 8:30, have breakfast, make breakfast, and then make lunch, and then go in. So tell me about tailgating with Ohio State, and what did you bring? What was your specialty?
So I think I've tailgated about 5 times, and I think wings was probably the thing I would bring the most. But then, there's always the Buckeye candy. So most people would.
What is that?
Bring
I don't know.
So a Buckeye candy is just a peanut butter ball, a ball of peanut butter. And then you put part of it and just dip it in chocolate. So it's brown on the outside. So it looks like the Buckeye that comes on the Buckeye tree.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's peanut butter covered, with chocolate in the top. So you can still see that it looks like a Buckeye from the tree. So that's why they call it a Buckeye. I wanted to say real quick, one shout out. One thing is, a lot of people don't know too that the vendors that sell the booths that have like the hot dogs and the pop, those booths, a lot of those are ran per event by like their fundraising events. So like a group, my aunt runs a cheerleading gym, and their group runs one of those, and they get profits that help the kids get to go to competitions and pay for their uniforms and things like that. So I really thought that was cool too, that they let you do that.
I used to live near Fresno State, and we used to go to a lot of those games. I was a season ticket holder, and then I would cover it for what we do, Mike and I do. But I was also, at the time, executive director of a nonprofit that ended up, actually called Pain, ended up winning a nonprofit of the year. And I bring that up only because part of our budgeting and the way that we would earn and get money is by doing that as a nonprofit. We will work those concession stands and get a percentage. And it is not easy work, my friends. It is.
No. I did hot dogs one time, and by the time we were done, my hand was completely like cramped. I couldn't even eat hot dogs or look at them for like months.
Yeah,
I understand that.
Yeah, we actually had a guest, one of our very first guests we had on. His name was Jonah. He actually works at Wrigley Field, and he is a hot dog vendor. That is one of his main jobs.
Wow.
And he loves every minute of it, and he actually somehow does like Facebook shorts or YouTube shorts and stuff while he's, hot dogs and other concession items and stuff like that. So that was a fun conversation. I got to ask, so tomorrow night's the big game. And so outside of watching the Around the Ballpark podcast minimized tomorrow, because I'm sure you will, of course, who doesn't, right? But tomorrow night, what is a Laracuente house look like during a national championship game? Uncharted territory for a national championship game, but what is that going to look like tomorrow? Are you going to sit next to each other, hold each other's hand? Are you going to be in different rooms?
Great question.
No. So we generally we found a group here. So usually we are the first year that since we've been together, the first year that they played each other, I worked. So that worked out good because we were in different households.
Yeah.
Then the next time, I think it would, I'm pretty intense when it comes to like sportsmanship and stuff. And so I'm pretty sure I've hurt his feelings several times because then last year I decided I had my pom-poms and my piggy tails, but I still kind of tamed it down a little because, they're losing. You don't want to rub it in.
Yeah.
So,
but we don't have a great record, for the last 6 games. If you haven't noticed,
but it's usually pretty fun. It's just like a normal game generally, but we get our digs in every once in a while. But I don't want to hurt feelings.
Try not to get upset. It's just a game.
So, Mark, I have a quick question for you, Mark. When we get a decisive victory tomorrow, are you gonna low key it? Are you gonna be yelling, screaming? How are you gonna play it when we get the big victory?
I don't know. I mean, I gotta.
I do. He's gonna scream as loud as he pouts if he loses. I love you.
I'm gonna try to be low key, but we'll see.
I will jump and scream and run down the road and all that.
So the neighbors will hear you tomorrow if they're. Yes, they will. Yeah.
So we found this accidentally. What we're doing this year, we won't be home. We found this gentleman. His name is John. I can't read this one. Swanson and Stevenson. And he is a Buckeye fan as well. We met him in Winn-Dixie. God bless Winn-Dixie.
God bless Winn-Dixie.
And he introduced us to the Brevard County Buckeye fan group, where they all
the alumni
club, and they all go to Beef O'Brady's, and they gather there, and it's the whole restaurant is just full of Buckeye fans here in Florida. So we always go for the Michigan game and for the Rose Bowl.
Other games, they've got a whole room where it spills out throughout the whole restaurant.
Right. But it still ends up being a lot of Buckeye fans.
There is a lot of Buckeye.
And we've taken Mark's friend, who's friends from work who are Tennessee fans, there to the Buckeye thing. And they were wonderful fans. And then we took his best friend, Isaac. He's also an Irish fan, to the Buckeye game there at the thing. But this time, for some reason, Mark doesn't think he wants to go to the Buckeye Alumni Club, and I can't figure out why.
I think it's because of the Around the Ballpark podcast live on YouTube.
That's right, because
that's what I'm thinking.
I don't want to be distracted.
Otherwise you'd be there in a heartbeat.
Right.
We are going though. We do want to like to support them because he has a big he has a memorabilia store. And he has all kinds of stuff. And
JLS Sports. Here in
JLS
Melbourne.
Sports. He gave us at Christmas time. This is, if you can see it, there's a red one and a green one, and they're actually
pieces from the field.
pieces from
It looks like turf. Yeah.
Yeah,
they're turf. So one piece is is field turf, and one piece is an end zone turf, and they're certified.
Yeah, so the green is the field turf, and the red is the end zone turf.
Right. So that was pretty cool. He does a raffle during the games, or they'll do trivia, and you'll win prizes, and so he gives away stuff. And Mark also won a wonderful gift. It's a Buckeye.
During the Michigan game, we had a raffle.
Nice.
And won a lithographed Eddie Griffin. So we just wanted to shout out John.
Beautiful. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, that's where we'll go. Probably be going tomorrow.
Yep.
It's great. Now, Mark, have you ever been to Notre Dame Stadium?
Yeah. I saw Notre Dame Stanford.
Nice.
I've been to, it was great. It was oh boy. I think it was maybe 2006 or 2008 or something like that. I forgot when it was, but it's a beautiful campus, really enjoyed the time there. You got to walk around the campus. You got to see Touchdown Jesus, you got to just do the whole thing. It's a lot of
I've never seen a game there, but you mentioned Touchdown Jesus. I was driving cross country to get here where I live now, Cape Cod, moving from where I used to live in California. But we had to stop. My family surprised me. Take a picture in front of Touchdown Jesus. Have to do it.
Yeah,
Let's do the stadium.
Right on. I'm glad you got to see it.
Yep.
Now I want to watch Rudy. Now it's
I've been waiting for this moment my whole life.
Oh,
He's so little.
Now, during the season, I know you mentioned sometimes you'll go there and whatnot, but like how much of us do you make it a point to watch each game if you can each week when it's on, or are you more of like a, if I don't have something going on, I'll watch it, or do you clear the calendar and no, I'm watching the game no matter what?
Marcus, it used to be a lot more before we had so many other things going on. It used to be every weekend, especially the Ohio State Michigan game. We would have, in my past, we would, our families and friends would get together. We would have hog roasts. It would be in the snow or in the rain or whatever. But, we always had great big parties for the Ohio State Michigan game and stuff. And it was always a thing. And my Uncle Jim, he is in Ohio, in Asheville, and he watches I think he watches every single solitary game. He's probably one of their biggest fans. But I haven't watched them as faithfully, as I used to, but we try to at least turn it on.
It's been a hard season, we had the Connect group and stuff like that this season, but we try to watch them.
So, Heather, if you can kind of share with the casual fan or the person who's not as invested as all we are, you mentioned Florida. I know the gentleman who's the marketing director there at wonderful university as well. How important it is for Ohio State to beat Michigan?
It is. That's they could lose every other game of the year.
Gotta win that game.
Win that one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why after that game, the talk was, we got to get rid of Day or their coach. And then fortunately, he's made it to this point, and that's kind of turned things around now.
Right. I mean, Harbaugh couldn't beat Ohio for the longest time. That was not against him.
Right. It is a very big deal, a very, very, very big deal. They prepare for it all year long. Even the fans prepare for it. And sometimes it's not as nice as you would like it to be, but, a lot of times, most of the time, it's just a lot of fun and poking around, but it can get pretty gnarly, like it did, on the field this year, when you are going to plant go ahead, plant your flag on our field, and that's going to be fine. We're in the.
And we do have a question from one of our listeners. Isaac Hall asked, Mark, what was better, watching the Irish in a bowl game or watching them at home?
Oh boy, yeah. So that's my brother Isaac, and we were fortunate enough to go see LSU and Notre Dame at the Camping World Stadium. What was that? 2 years ago, I think it was when that was. And man, I mean, that was a blast. We were right by the band. We were on the end zone, but we were probably, I don't know, like 8 rows up or something like that. We weren't very far up, and we were right there by the band. That was a really good time. But I mean, that, and the weather, of course, was nice. But I think going to Notre Dame at home, you got to do that if you get the opportunity, just because of history.
And he mentioned the band. You cannot forget about the best damn band in the land, right?
Oh, by the way, and I'm a huge Notre Dame Irish fan. Ohio State is the best band. By
Oh,
far,
yeah,
they have
no
the best
doubt.
band.
You have a good marching band.
Yes.
For
Where
sure.
where I
No
actually
doubt.
went to for high school was Melbourne Central Catholic, and we didn't have our own band, so we had to borrow a band from another school. On their road games, they would come and play at our home stadium and pretend they were part of our own school, and we had to
That's
sit
fun.
through. I remember distinctly there was a game where they were playing Pahokee, and we were down 67-0 in the fourth quarter. And
But it's
God
not
bless
over.
those cheerleaders, but they were trying. They were still doing the "We are number one," you know.
Right.
We had a field goal attempt. Not only did it miss, but it didn't even cross the goal line. Like, so we lost our homecoming game 73-0. And then we went undefeated the following season. Go figure. I don't know how that happened.
Listen, you went undefeated the following year, right?
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
music was good.
Yeah, the music was good.
So you
Yes.
had a rented band and rented cheerleaders.
That is pretty cool. That's pretty
That
cool.
story.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's good.
And I know we're about to have our next guest join us. Before we do, Darren, do you have a final question on your end before we have David come on?
Heather and Mark, real quick, final scores, predictions.
Oh boy.
36-12.
28-21 Irish.
Buckeyes.
I love that you guys bring such energy. This has been wonderful, Mike.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
We always love having super fans on, more than the statistician that knows every little in and out and stuff. The super fan is what's up, because they live and die with each one. But it is a game at the end. They recognize the correct super fan, recognize that it is just a game at the end of the day. But I look forward to tomorrow night's game, of course, and regardless of the outcome, I love that they're getting to play each other, and you get to enjoy that experience tomorrow together. Because as a fan of many teams that don't make it to the playoffs, enjoy it. My Mets made it this year, so I'm ecstatic. They went a lot farther.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but thank you so
for
much,
having
Heather and
us.
Mark, and for joining us. And just definitely watch that game tomorrow. Thank you, Isaac, for in the comments in the chat there, and a couple others as well. Little Gamer T, I never caught your first name, but thank you so much as well.
That's Taylor. That's our granddaughter Taylor.
Yeah, that's Taylor, our granddaughter. Yeah.
She's in Ohio, freezing cold right now.
Awesome.
So
She's a Buckeye fan.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much.
okay, bye guys. Love everybody. Have a good night. Go Bugs.
Bye.
Irish.
Go Irish.
That was
All right,
fantastic.
everyone, and we are back. It was
David Crow, baby.
as well. And David, thank you so much for joining us here. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is going ahead and going to just throw on our abbreviated intro video, just because it is now 8:00 hour. So thank everyone again for not just watching us on YouTube, but on Facebook and for X on the first time. So thank you so much. So with that said, I'm going to show our intro video here, and then we'll get into it. So yes, we are back live here on the Around the Ballpark podcast, live, like I said, on YouTube, Facebook, and X. So if this is your first time watching it, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, hit that like button, turn on notifications, let us know you're here in the comments. But thank you guys so very much. And so our guest of honor right now, we have David Crow with us. Thank you so much for joining us, David. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. And by the way, I have a real life Ted Williams story.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
I know it's, if we happen to accidentally start with that, I would be totally okay with that.
Okay. I hardly ever get to tell this. So when I moved from the Navajo Indian Reservation to Washington, D.C., I got a job caddying at Burning Tree Country Club, the most exclusive country club in the country. Wives weren't even allowed to come into the parking lot to drop their men off. So I got a caddy for Gerald Ford, Richard Nixon, all kinds of people. But one day I got the caddy for Ted Williams, the then owner of the Washington Senators, Bob Lemon. This is before they moved and became the Texas Rangers. And so I'm on the golf course with Ted Williams. And two quick stories. So one, he's the biggest man I've ever seen. He's massive. And second, it took me a while to figure out that he always called himself by the third person, Old Teddy Ballgame. So for a minute, I thought, like, who the hell is Old Teddy Ballgame? Well, it's him. So he and the owner are going back and forth. He managed the Senators for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason he didn't do well is he was such a great athlete that he never really understood when people didn't understand, right?
Right.
But when we were going along, and the first thing I realized about him, so 4 people hit the golf ball. I've got 2 on the cart, 2 on my shoulders. And Williams looks at me, he says, "Son, which ball is mine?" And I said, "Mr. Williams, it's one of those 2." And he said, "The one on the left is Titleist 15. He could read the letters on it from 120 yards. I couldn't even tell there was script on it.
Wow.
The next quick story, we're on the 7th hole, and it's a real uphill hole. He's in the rough. He says, "Son, what club should I hit?" And I said, "Well, you're going to need a big club to get out of this. Take a 7. He hit the 7-iron. It cleared the green, the fence, and the road. And I said, "Oh, my God, Mr. Williams, I had no idea how strong you were." Thank God he laughed. Anyway, I had 18 holes with Ted Williams. It was the most surreal experience of my life. He was incredible. The stories he told, the things that he obviously could do. I felt I was 1 year off the Navajo Indian Reservation when this happened.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. And it's funny, getting that story out now is completely different, like versus when it just happened, to try to get the words out. It's like approaching a girl for the first time. You're trying to, you're kind of courting her a little bit. You want to say something and nothing comes out. It's just jibber jabber. But so trying to tell that story, I'm sure for the first time to friends and family had to have not come out exactly as you wanted to, probably overwhelmed with something like that.
Thank you. I've never told that story to anybody. 1, I couldn't believe it happened. And 2, he wasn't a overly nice man, but he was incredibly smart. And you knew it. He told a story. He would cut up his own, he would send lumber to Louisville Slugger, and they would carve his bats for him. And he rode off season to keep himself strong, and God, he was built. And one time he got in a fight with Louisville Slugger. He said, "Your bat's off by 1/4 of an ounce." And he was right. He could pick it up and tell. He had 20/15 vision. He was a great fighter, bomber pilot.
Yep.
In the Korean War, had he not gone in the Korean War, he probably would hit 900 home runs.
Easy. I agree.
But he was the most incredibly meticulous, perfectionist man I have ever met in my life. Ever.
So I have a quick Ted Williams story about when he was with the Washington Senators that was told by the late Lenny Randall, who just passed away.
Yes, God rest him.
Yes. So he told this great story about Ted Williams, and he mentions that, he could be a little itchy, right? A little
itchy.
So I guess the team was struggling hitting, And I don't know how old Ted Williams was at the time he was manager, in his 40s.
I'd say late 50s.
Maybe
That's
like
what's
50.
like to me.
He's getting in there, and he's just getting line drive. This is what you have to do, guys. What's so hard? Lenny Randall. If you knew Lenny was a little out there, a little space cadet in a good way. He said, "You're not Ted Williams." And Ted Williams just started to laugh because he had the gumption. It's sort of like, the Emperor's New Clothes. So, because we're not Ted Williams, we can't do what you do.
What a great story, Darren.
Yeah, that's true. Not as good as yours, though. That's
I mean, and those of you watching along, what three great stories to start. We didn't even get to do a full introduction yet. We got 3 awesome stories. So, so before we do that, I just want to just thank you so much for jumping on with us here at Around the Ballpark. One of the things we like to mention, while predominantly we are a baseball or sports related podcast, one of the things we love to do here on this channel is to have guests on that. While we do still twinkle in a little bit of sports like we just did, we love to. It's called Around the Ballpark for a reason, because on the way to the ballpark, we're not just talking about the game that we're going to go see. We're talking about this, that, and whatever, and so, or yada yada. Seinfeld fan. So that's what we're going to do here tonight. We are going to talk a little bit of sports, but we're going to get to know you a little bit as far as the book, of course, and we'll dive into so much more stuff. So those of you maybe watching like, oh, this isn't sport talk, maybe that are when they jump on here in just a few minutes, that's okay. We love to do these kind of episodes. It's one of our favorite things to do. So David, if you wouldn't mind, just a quick introduction about yourself and of course, the name of the book that we're going to be talking about here this evening, and then we'll get into some good stuff.
So, Mike, first I want to thank you and Darren. Here's the elevator speech. I'm born 9 months after my dad gets out of San Quentin for a crime that could have gotten him the death penalty. Should have. We flee to the Navajo Indian Reservation for 2 reasons. His accomplice won't think to look for him there, and you can lie about being a violent felon because no one will check. Because anybody willing to work there got hired. If you didn't shoot your boss on the first day, you got promoted. We're talking about a very almost third world place. And I said this is all due love and respect for the Navajos. So my book begins at almost 4 years old. My dad's driving me into the high tundra. We lived at almost 8,000 feet. So we had real winter, very thin air. We're driving around and Dad's explaining to me that we have to get rid of my mother because if I grow up with her, I'll be crazy like her, and we have to get rid of her. This is my first memory. And then from then all the way till he tries to kill my stepmother, it's just a constant turmoil and a battle with him all the way till the end. And once he tried to get me killed, and I knew him well enough to know that he was trying to draw me into a trap. And once I figured out what that trap was, I was able to beat him at his own game.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack there. And those of you can see on the screen there, the holding the book, The Pale-Faced Lie, a multiple award winning book, and we're going to dive into that. A lot more awards than I've received myself. If that's okay, I just want to read a few of them off, if that's okay with you. Spur Award, Best Western First Nonfiction Book. Spur Award, Best Western Contemporary Nonfiction finalist. The Silver Award, Ippy Silver Award, Memoir Coming of Age. Next Generation Indie Book Award, Best Memoir Overcoming Adversity. International Book Award, Best True Crime, and Reader's Favorite Gold Medal Nonfiction Drama. Quite the resume there for that book. And so really excited to dive into this. But Darren, if you wanted to go ahead and start off with your first question you had on your end.
Well, I don't want to give away too much of the book, but I just want people to understand that the person we're sitting with is really a linchpin to a world that unfortunately was, a world that actually was, and now runs a think tank and to a beautiful world of grace. I'm going to start there, David, Why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners about what you do with the percentage of the money raised from the book and the two organizations that you help and why?
Well, first, Mike and Darren, thank you. And Mike, everybody wishes they were you. So there are two things that I do, and my theory is do few things and do them well. So the first thing I do is financially support a battered women's shelter in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My mother became homeless in Albuquerque when I was a kid. She had nowhere to go. I picked the Barrett House because it's the kind of place I wish my mom could have found. The Barrett House takes battered women, almost always with children, and gives them all the resources they need to get them on their feet and get them out. One of the things that they recognize, and this is very important, is that kids that live in a home where it's a shelter, some sort of place like that, if they're there for more than a year, they often repeat that experience as adults. If you can get them out, get the mother out, get her to success, and get her into a safe place, it's a major win for her and all of her kids. My second charity is my lobbying firm, DCLRS, and I don't want to brag about that, but what I've had is over 200 interns who were paid and trained by me and my staff, and we've gotten them placed in graduate school, law school, jobs. It's my way of playing it forward. I try to help at least 6 to 8 kids a year who got the kind of help that I wish I had and get them into a place where they can go on and advance their careers. I've written American citizenship letters for DACA applications. These are the so-called dreamer kids. I've written law school applications, graduate school applications, job interviews. I help every kid that I can that comes to my lobbying firm. And I'm a huge believer that if you're lucky enough to be like me, where you got through a really bad situation, your only job is to play it forward.
Wow, that was a lot to unpack there, but go ahead, Darren.
First of all, that's the grace of the man who I am honored to call a friend.
I'm honored to call you friend, Darren.
Well, thank you very much. The name of the book is The Pale-Faced Lie because you were raised under a lie. You thought, talk a little bit about that and how the indigenous people from the reservation did not take too kindly to you and your family.
Well, Darren, this is a crazy story. So to make this short and to the point for our listeners, my dad pretended to be a full-blooded Cherokee. And he's on the Navajo Indian Reservation pretending to be a fellow Indian helping work with the Navajos. So as a kid, you're pretending to be an Indian on an Indian reservation. There are very few things dumber than that. And of course, every kid in the world beat me up and made me feel like I was the worst kid that ever lived. But you learn from this and you draw wisdom from this. And one of the first lessons I learned is that some of the people who come from the poorest places, the worst background, and I'm going to cite my very first angel. I have 7 angels. Was an 80-year-old Navajo woman who saw 4 kids living in a place they didn't belong. And every day she came over, put her arms around me, hugged me, and told me she loved me. This is a woman whose grandmother walked back from the long walk, the Navajo Holocaust, where American cavalry killed anybody who couldn't keep up and couldn't walk fast enough. And they went 4 years back and forth. It was horrible. Only 8,000 Navajos lived. Her grandmother lived through this. And this woman taught me harmony and justice and love. She had no anger. She had no angst. She had no enemies. She didn't feel sorry for herself. She never saw herself as a victim. She taught me more about love than I've ever known in my whole life. I've been incredibly blessed. And my job is to play that forward.
Mike, you want to go ahead or you want me to?
Oh, you go ahead. You finish. That's fine.
Excellent. You mentioned that you had 7 angels overall. I mean, we don't have time to go through them all, but you were a young kid put in a very bad situation, and your dad had you doing some really bad things and telling you some really horrible things. And you also had to be at 4, at 5, and 6. You were a parent already to your younger brother who you protect. And, you know, we won't go through too much of that now, and your sisters and everything else. How did you mentally get through it? That's
Well,
a lot
Darren,
of, how'd you do it?
you and I have a great relationship and we know each other. So what I'll say to you and Mike is you would have done the same thing. So what you realize when you reduce all of human experience down to the most basic thing, protect your family, try to move forward, try to be positive. My father tried to break all of my siblings and me down. He tried to destroy us. And I decided at some point, you can't let anybody destroy who you are, what you believe in, how you feel about yourself as a person. And your goal is to connect with other people, show them love, and show that you belong to the bigger part of the world. And you're not going to hate. You're not going to be in a position where you hate every person that you deal with, like my dad did. And we bonded together and we found people who took care of us. And along my life, I found several angels, people who had no reason to help me and got me through life and got me to a point where I realized that I'm incredibly lucky that 1, I didn't get trapped in that life, and 2, that I was able to connect with people like Mike and Darren Redmond and being part of a better world, a bigger world, and a world where we all care about each other, help each other, and we play it forward. And my greatest accomplishment, I'll say, is breaking the cycle of generations of people on my mother's father and my father's side who did nothing but hate and did nothing but harm. I feel no animosity towards anybody, no hate, and all I want to do is look for ways to connect, to be positive, to be helpful, and proof positive is that I'm here with Mike and Darren Richmond.
Okay, Mike.
Now I'm just taking that all in, and one of the, if not the greatest gift right now. I'm fortunate to wear many hats right now and involved in many different things, but I think that without question the most important thing that I'm doing outside of being a father and a husband and family, but I am currently oversee the children's ministry here at the church with my wife, with Eileen, and
God bless you.
Thank you so much. And one of the highlights for me, you see the children come in each and every week, and some seem down, some seem angry, some are excited to be there. And, some children, they like to get on your last nerve, right? They like to hit all the buttons, and they want to get you to call their mom and come get them again and this and that. But then you stop, and not saying that doesn't happen, but what happens a lot of the times is you stop and you go, if I just yell at this child again, and if I say something to this child, that maybe that's all they're experiencing all week long at home. We don't know what their home life is like. So maybe a different approach. Maybe instead of getting upset with that individual and having a feeling of in your heart of anger or whatnot, maybe we say, hey, so-and-so, and why don't you be my helper today? Why don't you help me pass out papers? Why don't you help me be the line leader? Why don't you help with this? And while that doesn't always solve something, that can completely change that child's day around. And so not holding on to something like that. And so a lot of these children, they'll tell us and my other teachers some very personal things that happen at home and whatnot. And our job is to teach them to forgive. We don't have to always forget, but to forgive and not hold that in their heart. And sometimes we ask them to come up here and sometimes we don't take for granted, maybe they're 7, 8 years old and we think that they're just going to come up there and they're going to pray, I love Jesus, and that's it. But reality is, like, they're capable of so much and they have so much love in their heart. And if you give them the platform, and they are some powerful prayer warriors especially at that age. And so I think what you shared about not holding that, in your heart is so important, because so many people hold on to different emotions for so long. And sometimes they don't even remember what it was that they were upset about in the first place. And friendships that could have been salvaged many, many years ago go decades sometimes without repair. And so I'm glad that you shared that. But go ahead, Darren.
Amen. You and Darren are proof that you can overcome things, that you become bigger and better than what you were raised. And the most important thing in the world is to help the next generation and to teach them that life can be better, can be happier, can be productive, and to not hate themselves, to not feel all the terrible things I felt. I never knew a person ever that was happy, that loved each other, and that supported each other. I didn't know it existed, but that is the core of what our society is built on. And I'm so proud to support you and Darren and what you're teaching, what you've taught your kids. And what we're saying to our listeners is this is the most important thing in terms of going forward and producing and contributing to our society.
It's creating disciples is really what it is. It's not, and that's what I love about the children's ministry too, is here it's not about the name on the back of our shirt or our jersey, or apply that to whatever, right? We call our kids ministry the backyard kids, because a lot of the times they'll get involved in something and they want to do it, but they want that pat in the back. And I'm looking for that person that will do something out of the kindness of their heart and not look for that recognition. And of course, we all love every once in a while a job well done, get a little hug, whatever. Of course, no, I mean, who wouldn't? But that's one thing I love about my team. It's how can I disciple the next person to take what I'm doing and apply that to the next generation, not look at me, look what I'm accomplishing. And so I love that so much.
Yeah, I want to, David, I want to talk a little bit about the terrible. I want to talk about the knucklehead stuff you did as well with your brother. And I want to talk about the big tire incident, because that is a hysterical, funny story. And I want to warn people, we're PG here, but this is quite sad what David may bring up now. And that is the number of people that were allowed to just walk in the cold weather and never be seen again, and get drunk and talk a little bit about that. And you grew up with this every day.
But Darren, thank you. You have fired a arrow to my heart. And when I was a kid living on the reservation, and again, we're at almost 8,000 feet. This is very, very cold. 40, 50 below zero. You're at the timberline. It's very thin air. And my dad and family would be driving along, and you see a family from 8 to 80, and they're walking for endless hours in incredible cold. They have no one and no place to protect them. And I would cry because I couldn't believe that they put the people had to go through this. One of the most powerful memories, and it's in my book, The Pale-Faced Lie. When we were in Gallup, we lived near a pawn shop, a liquor store, a wrecking yard, and a trading post. And I saw a family of 4. a woman, Navajo woman with 3 kids, and her husband had taken off all his jewelry, his boots, his hat, everything, and sold it to buy more liquor. And I'm looking at this family and the sadness in the wife's eyes, and I'm thinking to myself, how in the world can this be possible that this family has to suffer from this? And alcoholism has always been a big issue. But the bars were open 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. around the clock. And you realize no one really cares about this because they're making money off this. And even at 10 years old, it made me cry. And maybe understand the weakness of the human character, and that I always wanted to be a guy who did better than that, who helped people. And my childhood so scarred me, but it also made me who I am. And I thank you, Mike and Darren, for giving me the opportunity to talk about that and how painful that was, and how much I want our listeners to know that the difference between the best person you know and the worst person you know is simply play it forward, try to help the next generation, be good to your own kids, and by all means, be moral, be faithful, be good. It's something I grew up without understanding any of that, because none of that was shown to me or my siblings.
And I wanted to, and thank you so much for sharing that. And I wanted to ask you, I'm not sure if it's something that is still ongoing or not, but one thing I really enjoyed to hear about was with in terms of the book and also but the book club meeting opportunities. I thought that was very interesting. If you can dive into that just a little bit and tell our listeners, and just want to shout out, I see quite a few of you here that are here. Go ahead, and if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments. I see all of you on there on Facebook, X, and YouTube. But we're thankful that you're here. Even if you're not commenting, that's fine. But just let us know that you're here. We see you, so you might as well comment while you're here. But David, so if you wouldn't mind just sharing about the book club opportunities.
Well, what I think you're saying is this book, which I never thought I would write, which I never thought I would be brave enough to tell my story, gave me an opportunity to do one thing that I really believed in, to show people you can overcome things that you think are impossible to overcome. What I was trying to do is reach the person who is broken, who hates themselves, who doesn't love themselves, who's raised to believe that are no good, to see that there can be a better life, a bigger life, a life where you can be on the other side of this. And it's been by far and away my greatest accomplishment, no matter what else I do. And I have great children, 3 wonderful grandchildren. But my goal is to show people you can break the cycle. You can get to the other side, but you have to have courage, you have to have faith, and you have to work through so many things that you think you cannot work through.
Now, David, I know you've done a lot of these virtual and in-person book readings. Talk a little bit about that, and how does somebody get in touch with you if they want that to happen?
So, davidcrowauthor.com, you can reach me. And I respond to every book club Zoom. I write every person back who writes me something that I consider a reasonable letter. I have people write me, I hate you, I wish you were in prison. I go, okay, that's fine. But I respond. And at davidcrowauthor.com, you can reach me. What I hope to do, what I've tried to do, is reach people. And I had several today. I grew up hating myself. I'm fat, I'm stupid, I'm ugly. Well, these are people who've been told that as kids. There's somebody for everybody, I guarantee you. And none of us are Hollywood stars. Some of us are, but 99% of us aren't. And we're told that we're worthless, no good, can't contribute, not lovable. and none of it's true. But the most important thing is you have to step outside of how you were raised, what you were told, and believe in the value of your own self. And you have to dismiss all the things you were taught. And every bad cycle, alcoholism, men beating women, poverty, all of it is about growing up believing you can't do better. And my message is, yes, you can. No, you don't have to believe any of the things you were told. And absolutely, you can raise yourself to be somebody that everyone looks up to.
You know, later in life, you kind of got out of that situation. And, you know, you and I have talked about this before. And I think this is very important, people. What happens is when you start to feel, and this is why sometimes it's called a generational curse, right, Mike? I mean,
Yes.
we repeat these things. David, and again, not giving too much away in the book, ends up going to Maryland with the Terps, and he's really starting to establish himself. His father shows up there, and then he finds himself back at the reservation by choice. He feels like somehow he doesn't deserve success. And talk a little bit about that angel and the co-talkers who said, you know what? You do deserve success. You're a good person. Everybody deserves success, regardless of who they are. Talk about that.
Thank you, Darren. So I went back to the reservation over and over. I thought there were answers there for me. I showed back up at my childhood friend's home. And the thing that I found interesting is that the original code talker best friend that I had, he wanted to talk to me, and he said, why do you keep coming back to the reservation? Your family is white. They live in Washington, D.C. There are no answers here. You're not an Indian. You have no place here. You have no value here. What are you afraid of? And the answer was, I was afraid of facing my father. I was afraid of facing all the things that made me feel inferior, unable to really be a functioning adult. And he made me understand something, that the most important thing you can do is believe in yourself, know who you are, and not be afraid to stand up for all the things that you think you deserve. Don't feel inferior. Don't feel like you're not good enough. Don't feel like you deserve bad things. And I was amazed that here's a man who didn't get through grade school, who was captured on an Indian reservation, who was dragged into a boarding school, head shaved, eating lice soap, being told we have to kill the Indian to save the man. And he had become this great man who understood the value of what a person should be. And it had the most incredible impact on my life.
And I wanted to share too. You mentioned, sometimes one of the things we like to do on this, tying into sports just for a quick minute, one of the things we like to talk about on this channel sometimes is, Darren, you likes to use the phrase yelling at the clouds, as I believe that's what you like to call it.
Yelling at clouds.
Yes. And so why I say that is because sometimes when it's one thing to believe a certain, believe an emotion, believe something, right? But sometimes we have to proclaim it with our voice. We have to shout out, even if we have to shout it to the clouds and say, I am worthy, I am good enough. And, what do we do, for example? What do we do when we're on the road, right? And the light's not turning red fast enough, or someone cuts us off in traffic, and we have no hesitation, right? We're just start yelling, sometimes obscenities at these people. What's going on? But when we really want change, we really want to believe something to be true, when we really want to change who we are for the better, why are we do it so quietly in a silent prayer, or just believe it in our heart? Why not shout it out from the rooftops and say, no, I am going to beat this. I am going to overcome. God has not given me a spirit. God has given me a spirit. And so it's just so important to, and I'm glad that we covered this tonight. It's so good. Darren, do you want to speak on that a little bit?
Well,
Mike,
go ahead. Well, go ahead, David.
things. My father, if you cut him off in traffic, he would track you down. He would try to kill you. He'd be happy to kill your dog, and he would be happy to do anything he could to destroy your life. Even though it was the most minor thing on earth, he would turn the most minor affront into the biggest issue you can imagine. And one of the things I learned from Dad is the people who are in maximum security prison versus the rest of us, most of us would say, okay, this guy's a jerk, let it go. My dad would hunt you down, try to kill you, try to kill your dog, try to hurt your family. He could never let go. And one of the things I learned is the most important thing you can have in life is empathy for other people, understanding that maybe they had a bad day. And even if they don't deserve your mercy, move on, let it go, and live your life. My dad can never do that. He never had a single day in his life that was happy, that was friendly, where he didn't hate somebody. It's a powerful lesson.
Oh, absolutely. And it ties into what something Mike said earlier, too, about with the young people that he's blessed to work with. You don't know what's going on in their home. You don't know what's going on in that person. Just let them go. It's easier said than done, but let them go. But David, I want to talk a little bit before we wrap up about some fun stuff. But please share with our audience the knucklehead stuff that you and your brother did with that big wheel down the hill. And kids, don't do this at home. That's all I'll say.
Hold on, let me add that to the. But do not try this at home.
Okay, bless you, Jared. So my brother and I, 10 and 8, I'm the big brother. We're in Gallup, New Mexico, and we stumble upon an enormous, fully inflated tire for a gigantic vehicle, either a forklift or a backhoe, something big, and it's fully inflated. We're 5 feet tall ourselves, and this tire is as tall as we are. It's 3 foot wide. It's fully inflated. So we live about a block from what we call Elephant Hill. And Elephant Hill has got about a 25-degree steep incline. This is the kind of incline that Olympic skiers face. Right, you're looking straight downhill. So I roll this tire and I look at the busiest intersection in Gallup, New Mexico. Right, traffic going south and west. About 50% of the traffic in our town travel in this road. So I'm at the top of this hill. I've got this gigantic tire, bigger than me, and I'm thinking, how much hell can I create? So I'm studying the traffic patterns, and I'm looking at the green and the red, and I decide that if I roll this tire, I'm about 30 seconds away from the green light, and it's going to hit whoever's in the middle of this intersection. So I roll this tire down. It wobbles a little bit, but at some point it picks up speed, and it starts making this whirring sound. It's going fast, and all at once traffic's moving. So a Volkswagen Beetle is going one way. It hits the Beetle and turns it into a V. it bounced back and it hits the Navajo man with a big truck with lots of hay, and it knocks the entire cab separated from the trunk. And I've created this huge mess. And I'm watching this, and all these people are responding. Where the hell did this tire come from? And I'm a little madman. If you read the book, you'll understand that. And I'm watching all these people looking around. I can't imagine what the hell caused all this commotion. There's bales of hay spread everywhere. The Volkswagen Beetle is destroyed. The man gets out. He is incredibly mad. And
As he should be.
Yeah, it's fair.
got a ponytail and an earring. So, in my dad's world, he's a sissy. And I'm looking around, and all the people involved in the intersection, they're trying to figure out where the hell this tire came from. How did it do all this damage? So my brother and I are laughing our heads off. We should have fled immediately since we caused this thing. But we can't. We can't believe that we did all this damage. So finally, at the end of all this, the guy in the Volkswagen Beetle straight up the hill, thank God, 25 degrees straight up, and he realizes we did this. He screams and starts running up the hill. I send my brother to the church and tell him to hide in the stairwell. I run, hoping that the guy will find me, chase me, and I dive into a yard, rolled under his truck, and thank God it's almost dusk. And the guy never finds me. I get home, tell this incredible lie to my dad. We get away with it. But the next day, Dallas Independent, the newspaper that covers our town, says, "Oh my God, this tire destroyed 2 vehicles, shut down the biggest intersection in town. How was this even possible?" So I tell my brother, "You can't say a word." My mother comes to me. God bless my mom. Still alive. She says, "Honey, one of the women thought they saw you roll that." No. It came off some vehicle. No one knows how this happened. We make the news. We make the front page of the paper. Somehow we don't get caught. So for the next several weeks, all I can think is, oh my God, somebody's going to figure out it was us. But thank God they never did. And I threatened my brother with, I said, "I will kill you if you tell anybody we did this." We destroyed 2 cars. We shut down the intersection. This guy lost all of his hay. Another guy lost his entire car. We shut down the town for about 45 minutes, and nobody knows it was us. And our mom, God bless my mom, was so mentally ill because she believed my story. That no, we didn't roll that tire down. It came from a vehicle, and nobody knows where it went.
Let's put your thoughts in the comments. Sorry, Loti. Darren must have hit a wrong button there. I'm sure he'll pop right back on.
Mike, we did 100 things like that. We got away with all these things. My father taught me to be the greatest criminal in the world. He taught me to get away with anything. He taught me to never be sorry, never feel bad about anything you do, and create as much problem as you can. My life's work is to really undo that and realize that everything he taught me was wrong.
David, I wanted to ask you a sports-related question. I know Mike and I were talking about this. So as a youth on the reservation, were there teams that you followed? What sports did you play? And what was your favorite sport? What were you best at?
So as a kid, everybody on the reservation played basketball. Loved that. Later, I loved to learn football. I was a track guy. I ran, and I loved doing that. And I found it was the only way to really connect with the other kids. All three of us know sports are a universal identifier. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, whatever. We love sports. We love our teams. And we love being a part of it. And I learned that on the reservation. Be a part of the team, love sports, and everything else kind of disappears. And it was one of the great things in my life, and it's still there. The sport means so much to me. It doesn't matter in the big picture. It gives all of us a place to identify, a place to have fun, a place to put all of our anger, our desire, our hurt, our belief. And it's not political, it's not racial, it's just fun.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I do have one final question. I know time's starting to run out, but I do want to ask. So right now, so we talked about what sports and athletics looked like back then. Right now, 2025, we'd love to know, because we are a predominantly sports podcast as well. What is your preference in 2025? Do you have a team that you follow, sport you follow? What is when you do have time for sports and whatnot, what is your go-to now? Do you enjoy one thing more than the other?
So I'm a long-suffering Washington fan. I hate Dan Snyder, as all intelligent people do.
That's right.
Josh Harris brought our team, brought us back, and I am a complete disciple of Jaden Daniels.
He's such a good quarterback.
Young man. And God bless this new Washington team. And I'm so excited. For the first time in decades, my daughter and I, who are long-suffering Washington fans, all at once we have something to be proud of, happy about, and to believe that good things can happen. I love Josh Harris. I love Jaden Daniels. I love Dan Quinn, who created this coaching staff. For the first time in decades, it's fun to be a Washington fan. And I am the happiest guy in the world.
Yeah, and just a side note, I really thought it was going to be Buffalo and Detroit was my pick and whatnot. But how exciting of a Super Bowl would it be? And I enjoy Buffalo, the way they play. Eagles are a tough out. But just thinking about for a minute, you mentioned how good Jaden Daniels is. Can we imagine for just a moment a Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels Super Bowl?
That would be incredible.
Woo, the amount of rushing yards by
Let's all three of us go. I think that you've got great teams on the AFC side, but I believe that Jaden Daniels and this team and Coach Quinn and the cast we have can do anything. And I haven't felt this way in many, many decades, back to Joe Gibbs. This is so exciting. And I'm so happy. And it makes me feel so good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad.
Yeah.
So you were not surprised they beat the Lions, right? You were not surprised they beat the Lions, right? Look at him. Look at he was not surprised.
Yep. And we are, those of you who see the bottom, it's just under 13 minutes to go. The Ravens are chasing Buffalo by 2 right now. So close game, 21-19. So we'll see what happens with that one. And but this has been a lot of fun. I thank all of you guys for watching on all three, on X, on Twitter, I'm sorry, not Twitter anymore, X, and Facebook, YouTube. Thank you so very much. Getting to know you, David, and Darren any final words on your end before we wrap this thing up tonight?
David, go
So
ahead.
last comment, Mike, Darren, you better have me back. You're friends for life.
Thank
I
you.
want to meet you in person, and thank God you're doing this. You're doing a great thing, and I'm so honored to be a part of this. Thank you.
People get the book, and David will do a read for you guys, and and through for your book clubs, and David. Just lastly, real quick, how many have you done since 2002, since COVID? How many have you done? Hundreds, thousands? It's amazing.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
And
Yes,
thanks for letting me be a part of this. God bless. Good night.
Good night.
Until we meet again.
Be
Yes,
well.
thank you. Yes, thank you so much, David. Until next time, everybody, we'll see you around the ballpark. Bye, guys.